When using S3 as essentially a middleware for your logs or for your metrics or for your traces, you can often find that costs can increase. And this is not ideal because the S3 is kind of just holding the data for a short period of time. There are a few things you can do with S3 though, for multiple reasons. If either you are setting your data to be retained for a long period of time, for example, in the S3 archive, which we talk about in this course, or if this S3 is just acting like a piece of middleware. For example, flow logs are going to S3 or going to Coralogix. So if you're planning on retaining the data in Coralogix or retaining the data in S3, for example, in the case of an archive, then you definitely should have a look at the intelligent tiering. So what this will do, if you click this Learn More button here, you'll get a lot of details as well. That what intelligent tiering does essentially is it will lower your to different storage levels over time, based on usage, whatever really happens. And this is really powerful because it essentially means that you get access to all of your data, but you're just not paying so much for the data that you're holding onto and not querying very much. This is really nice and it complements the TCO optimizer in Coralogix beautifully well. If you can imagine intelligent tiering saving you money and then the TCO optimizer saving you even more money on ingestion, that's a lot of money saved. You massively reduce the cost there. So that's the number one tip I would offer if you're planning on holding onto the data for a long time. You can also have compression and things like that you can configure inside S3 as well. The other thing I'll mention is lifecycle rules. So in the case where, for example, you have VPC flow logs that's going to S3 and then going to Coralogix, what you can do is you can create a lifecycle rule and apply it to all objects in the bucket. So this is kind of a very like sort of extreme, so definitely review this. But you can set it to permanently delete non-current versions of objects. You can look at a bunch of different options here, but this is a very extreme version, and you can dial it down as you need to. But you could set this, for example, to 1, and what this means is you only store one version of each object over the course of a given day. That means that if you have objects that are constantly being updated, you're not storing that massive version history, which is pretty common actually when things are being written to S3 because they get written in chunks. So the files will be updated regularly, and that means that those files are not constantly being stored. Millions of different versions of those files aren't constantly being stored. That reduction in the version history is obviously risky because that rollback is now gone. But you massively save a great deal of money. And remember, this data is getting sent out to Coralogix straight away anyway. So once it's been in the S3 bucket for a few moments, it's pretty much in Coralogix. So this is a really nice way of cutting down on those S3 costs. Like I say, the permanent deletion is maybe a bit scary for some people. So there are ways to expire or move things between storage classes, for example. So you can actually lower the storage class based on a non-current when a version becomes non-current. So if you got Glacier Deep Archive, it's much cheaper. So these are all just different ways that you can implement this to make sure that you're getting the best possible ROI for the data that you've got.